Hello friends, I welcome you back to Tech Academy. Today we are discussing on Angular command line interface. Before going into that, if you are new to this session, please like, share and subscribe for latest updates. Let's continue our chapter with Angular CLI. Before going into this, in our first video, we discussed something and we stopped there. That discussion was Angular, the fall and the rise. To understand Angular CLI, first let us try to understand why did Angular failed, and then it came with some other concept. Today it's ruling the world of front-end web application developments. So before Angular CLI, right, there was a I don't call it as a technology. We can call it as a framework which was built on top of JavaScript. Okay, that was named as Angular JS. Angular JS was the initial package that was given by Google to developers as part of release for candidate to develop web applications without coding much, without having much dependencies. So Angular JS did supported something called as two-way binding and dependency injection. This JavaScript library was supporting two-way binding and dependency injection. In later part of time, what happened was, when I'm developing some complex application or enterprise level applications, right, where there are enormous pages and enormous callbacks happening to different servers, databases. At that point of time, this JS package was just going beyond my control of writing the code, and it became more complex for a developer to handle that code. So the first problem which Angular JS had was about complexity. Then we will discuss some two-way binding and dependency injection also, but let us try to understand the problems which Angular JS had. The first thing is, it was complex to handle code, and most probably we should definitely know JavaScript. Unless until we are good with JavaScript, right, because it was built on JavaScript framework, it is hard for any developer to code if they don't know JavaScript. And it was completely JavaScript oriented. The first one is, it was complex in nature for maintaining many things. Then, as such, it is complex in nature. What happened was, suppose I have a page, I injected Angular JS here, then I navigated to here or here, whatever be the application that I'm developing, and I'm traversing to different pages, right? There was a performance issue. The second problem with Angular JS was performance issue. And the support which we get for any of the packages, right, which we take from, for example, if I am using Angular or React, we have something called as NPM, which we will discuss on our later classes. The support from other developers, creating some open source code snippets which can help me smoothline my application performance, other things was not there. Lack of support. Angular JS was complex in nature. Angular JS had performance issues. Angular JS, much support was not provided to developers, because of which most developers just washed their hand from AngularJS. And this led to the fall of AngularJS. Because most developers were not in like with this package. They were not liking this package because it was complex in maintaining other things. So it was just, which led to the fall of this framework, this JavaScript framework. Now, as I told, AngularJS, these are the pitfalls. Now, let's see what was the best things that AngularJS had. AngularJS had two-way binding. Now, let us try to understand what a two-way binding is. As we discussed in our previous sessions, Angular is an MVVM based architecture. Within this, suppose I have a class, user, and name as property. Now, in my front end, in my UI, I have a text box where I want to display this name. For example, I am writing Hari. I want to display this name. So, a model and a view are in sync. There is a synchronization between a model and a view. This synchronization is happening because of a binding property. Now, by mistakenly, I want to change the name as Harry. Then this model has to be updated back with this name, Harry. You can see, right, there is another synchronization happening from view to model. This is model to view and then view model. Model to view and then view model. So if I call this as a single cycle binding from model to view and view to model another single binding, then it is called as two-way binding. When an object property is set to means there is forget about object properties, okay? The synchronization between model and view in both the ways, from model to view and view to model, is two-way binding. I hope this is understandable, and this can be an interview question as well. What do we mean by two-way binding? The answer should be the synchronization between model to view and view to model is called two-way binding. If the question is about one-way binding, then it can be binding synchronization between model to view or view to model. This is one-way binding. Any of this is one-way binding. Both of them coupled together is two-way binding. Now, we understood about two-way binding. Dependency injection, it is a design pattern, it is an architecture design pattern. So it has lots of things that has to be discussed. In later sessions, we will understand the dependency injection concept. I hope this helps us. AngularJS supports two-way binding as part of its design. AngularJS failed because of its complexity in writing code. AngularJS failed because of performance issue. AngularJS failed because there was no much support. Now, assume that Google-like company has provided a framework which is getting fault, which is failing. Most of the developers are not liking this framework and they are just washing their hands from this framework. Then Google realized we have to change the entire flow and then something good for the developers they want to build. They came with Angular. They removed the JS from Angular, and they came up with Angular. So when they decided, okay, these are my drawbacks for the previous versions of AngularJS. Now I want to build a package which is user friendly and understandable by developers, where there is no performance issue and there should be enormous support for this package. So these are the pitfalls, right? To overcome these pitfalls, they Angular JS was completely scrapped. The entire package, the entire technology of Angular JS was completely scrapped. And then they started rebuilding a new Angular. So that is the rise. When they started building new Angular, right, they discussed, okay, how to do that. See, I know I want to come out of these pitfalls, right, these drawbacks of AngularJS. Then what could be my framework? How should I do that? Then, as we discussed about Node.js, which acts as a server, they started building one interface, which is termed as CLI. So CLI is specific to Angular only? No. CLI is a common package for React.js. It has its own CLI. Angular has its own CLI. Or Vue.js, it has its own CLI. So what does CLI does is, CLI acts as a mediator to connect to Node.js and to get all other technology specific commands running smoothly. So when we are talking about technology specific commands, right? For example, Angular may have some commands which are specific to this technology only. React will have its own commands. For example, if I want to run my application, I may have to type some X command. If I want to build my application, I may have to type some Y command, so on and so forth. So this CLI, which stands for command line interface. Interface means a command prompt which you can see. Example. But this one acts as a mediator to build the application on top of Node.js and to understand and generate concept and to understand and generate technology specific commands. So if I say, hey CLI, go and run my application. So run is the keyword, right? Run my application. Hey CLI, go and build my application. Okay, I have to do something. CLI, go and get some packages for me. CLI, do this. CLI, do that. So all this, it acts as an interface between me and the technology to understand what I actually want to develop via Angular technology, Angular framework. So as such, this Angular is completely scrapped. AngularJS is completely scrapped. They in the sense Google came up with Angular, they did not mention it as 1.0 because 1.0 version was already AngularJS. So the new Angular starts with its second version. This can be a question, why there is no version 1.0 for Angular? An interview question. Angular 1.0 version was not there because the previous version of AngularJS was actually representing 1.0, and this AngularJS had these many problems. So this was scrapped and a new Angular 2.0 took birth, which is the technology which we are discussing now. I know most of you are looking forward how to write code, how the code actually looks like, where I have to go, how the CLI be, how to get the packages, other things. I know we all are eager to learn. But before going into that level, right, let us first get into the core concepts so that it will be easy for you when we really write our code or build our code. It will be okay, we can correlate ourselves. Okay, this the discussion happened and this is how we are doing. Now, so this is about Angular CLI. It is the heart and soul of Angular application. It actually acts as an interface between the server and also understands the commands that it has to execute on top of this technology. Now, tomorrow we will be discussing on page life cycles. Later, we will discuss on other concepts. Till then, keep watching. Share, like, and subscribe. Thank you. Jai Hind.